Hello and welcome to Good Evening Britain, a Force for Good's weekly show coming to you live from our studios here in the heart of the great British city of Glasgow with me, your host, Alistair McConnachie. We are broadcasting on all our digital platforms throughout the United Kingdom and across the world. We're bringing you quality pro-UK comment and analysis every Wednesday from 7 until 8 p.m. on Facebook, on YouTube, on X, and on TikTok. Folks, please do tell us where you are watching from. Please do send in your greetings and send in your questions and comments because we love to hear from you. And it's been a busy political day as always. We have got a lot to talk about, and we're going to be very pleased to welcome on at 7:30 a first-time guest who's never been on before. It's going to be Damien Davies of Cheshire Cat Musings YouTube channel. And his YouTube channel is a unionist channel. It's a patriotically British channel. It's based down near the Wirral in England. And Damien is a great guy. We've known Damien since 2014 when he actually came up to help at the referendum back then. So we're going to be welcoming Damien onto the show, talking about his YouTube channel and talking about his parliamentary constituency, because believe it or not, it's going to be the constituency that is going to be contesting Mike Amesbury's seat. That's the Labour MP who is standing down. So all the eyes of the world are going to be on that particular constituency. And we're looking forward to hearing what Damien has got to say about that. We're going to be talking also about Nicola Sturgeon, who has announced the fact to the world that she's going to be spending more time with her book collection, and she's not going to be standing in 2026. We're going to be talking about the state of play within the Reform UK party, questioning whether or not it's going to damage it. And we're going to also be looking at a new document which A Force for Good has produced as part of our work for volume 2 of a big book for the union, specifically about the level of benefits which are given to so-called refugees and how this is a hangover from an article in the UN Convention on Refugees, which is now well past its sell-by date. And we're going to try to squeeze all of that in before 7:30, before Damien comes on the show. So folks, before we get into the meat and potatoes of the evening, please, if you're watching on X, give us a repost. Please at least give us a like and write any comments that you want as well, because that helps the algorithm. If you're watching on Facebook, please give us a like and please give us a share and comment in the thread as well, if only to say hello. And if you're watching on YouTube, please give us a like and please subscribe as well, because that's the way the algorithms learn that people are engaging with this program. And so the computer systems send out the message to the world that A Force for Good is broadcasting, that A Force for Good has the message that people need to listen to, because goodness me, we have got some good stuff to talk about and the world needs to know about it. And if you can help us get the message out, please, folks, please do so. That's so much appreciated, because we cannot be listening anymore to the mainstream media, which is often not, shall we say, often a little bit inaccurate with some of the things that it says. So let's be getting the truth out there. Let's be getting A Force for Good out there if you can, folks. And thanks for that. Let's just say hello to one or two people who have come in. Debbie, hello. Good evening, says Debbie. Great news about Nippy Sturgeon. What do we all think her next announcement will be? ? Well, I know she is doing a there's a so-called Glasgow Comedy Festival coming up, and is the book festival coming up? Yeah, she's got a two-woman show at the Glasgow Book Festival, whenever that is, at the King's Theatre as well. I think it's the 22nd of March, so that'll be the next thing on our mind. Who would go along to listen to hear Nicola Sturgeon talking about books? If that's you, you're in for a great night. If that's not you, you don't need to worry about it. You can leave it to the people who are interested. Exiled Viking says, good evening, Mr. Mac. Good evening to Mr. Exiled Viking. Hello, says Kathleen from Largs, the great British coastal town of Largs. Exiled Viking says, counting the £600,000 that she claims to know nothing about. Or was it 60? I can't recall. That's never going to get sorted, is it? Hello to Wag, who is watching from, I'm going to try to say Torrevieja. I probably mangled that one. But I hope things are good with you. Slim thinks reform are finished. Well, we'll talk about that in a moment. Karen says, bye-bye, Nippy, Nippy, goodbye. Indeed, bye-bye. We've got a picture of what the Daily Express used this morning to announce the news. Let's stick that up there. They were very unflattering, I have to say, about her particular record. What did it say? Nicola Sturgeon finally confirms she is stepping down from Holyrood after basically a year, several years of failure, shall we say, failure. And it really all started back when, well, we've been through this story, as you know, but it all started back when she started messing about with the gender politics of things. And we actually confronted her, a force for good, that is, outside of the assembly rooms in George Street. And when was this? Let me think. That this would be on the 24th of August 2022, not even 3 years ago. And let's play that video. Let's play that video of us outside.
Yeah, not so conspicuous You're poisoned, Miss Sturgeon. You poisoned our country. You poisoned our country.
When will you resign, Miss Sturgeon?
We want you out of power. Out of power. Out of power. Resign. Now. You're poisoned.
That was me in the background there shouting, will you apologise for damaging Scotland? That was somewhat of a pointed question, somewhat of a rhetorical question as well, because she didn't apologise, but in time her actions made it clear that she realised she was in the wrong. But that was a good day, and really we would date her downfall from that day in August 2022. It wasn't long until she realised the jig was up. And another guy that really also stuck the proverbial into her back was Andrew Neil. Andrew Neil. We remember the classic video. Do we have that we can play?
2 of your 8 waiting time targets being hit. You've been in for a long while. You haven't hit the A&E target since 2017. The 2-month cancer target you haven't hit since 2013. Children are dying in a new Glasgow hospital because the water's contaminated, perhaps by pigeon droppings. A new multi-million-pound Edinburgh hospital should have opened in 2012, is still unfit to open. You can't even get the ventilation system to work. You've got the worst drug addiction problem in Europe, but you cut drug treatment budgets by 15 million. You clung on to your last health minister. You're under pressure now to sack a successor. I mean, you've called for legislation to protect the NHS from Donald Trump. Maybe the NHS needs legislation to protect it from Nicola Sturgeon.
Maybe the NHS needs legislation to protect it from Nicola Sturgeon. Yes, that went hard. That went hard, I have to say, and that was just prior to 2022, though. But yes, he certainly stuck the knife in there. Exiled Viking says he's listening in a pub with a pint, listening through my earphones. Like this bit. These shows should be played on public screens and pub PA systems. They absolutely should. I wonder if we could get a contract with Wetherspoons to beam this into their pubs. And in fact, I know they've got a no audio policy, but they could at least have the subtitles going along the bottom. That would be excellent. Maybe we should inquire about that. Christopher says, good evening from Council Tax Championship winner, Falkirk. Yes, they put up the taxes more than anybody so far. And the people in that area, and we have several viewers in that area, are most certainly not pleased about it, because what you'll be paying for is just the same thing, except you'll be paying more for it. It's not like you'll get proportionally better service. Unfortunately, you really should, though, shouldn't you? If you pay more for something, you should get more of what you pay for. Oksana says, Reform have ruined it themselves. Rafa says, he's here. Good for you, sir. Dominic says that he confronted Nicola Sturgeon at a Coffee with Nicola event. Good for you, Dominic. Rafa says, I hate Sturgeon. She ruined the nation of Scotland. Her actions have shown that she was incompetent to be the leader of the country. SNP and Labour continues, two rubbish political parties that ruined Scotland. Time to change now. And Christopher says, you know, Andrew Neil absolutely floored her with a series of telling punches and a knockout blow at the end. We're talking about a knockout blow. We'll be talking about knockout blows when we talk about Mike Amesbury with our man Damien Davies at the bottom of the hour at 7:30. Now, one or 2 points were made there about reform, and we don't want to go into it too much. We'll speak about that with Damien, but of course, for some of you, some of you will know that they've got 5 MPs, and there's been a falling out with one of them. The most vocal on X is called Rupert Lowe. And he was very vocal every day, very vocal on X, still is very vocal on X. And we don't know what was going on or why there was a fallout or anything like that. But they have suspended him. And our feeling is that that's going to hurt the party a little bit internally. But they're actually on a wave at the moment. And I personally can't see it really deflecting from their continuing rise in the polls, because while those of us who are very conscious of politics know all about Rupert Lowe, there's quite a few people in the country that have never heard of him anyway. So, and for whom this is just an internal party argument, like that's to them, to the great mass of voters, as it were, out there, it's probably not going to affect in any way. But from a philosophical point of view, as far as what does it mean for the actual ideology of reform, such as it is, then there's maybe more of a question there. But the ideologies of parties, especially fringe parties like reform, so-called fringe parties, are not set in stone. They do change with members. As new members come in, the ideology can shift. So people who say, oh, reform are never going to deport people now, that's not really correct. Because as new members come in who want people to be deported, then the party leadership will then start to adjust to that. I've seen that happen. I used to be the Scottish organiser of UKIP back in 1999. And back then, UKIP wouldn't even talk about immigration, wouldn't even talk about it. And people who were maybe vocal about it were kind of said, just, well, it just wasn't going to be an issue because it was things that were very difficult to talk about. But look at how that shifted in the course of years. So parties do change, and it just depends upon the feeling of the nation and the feeling of the actual people who are in the party. And goodness knows there's a lot of people in the party who agree with Rupert Lowe, and who, whether he's in the party or not, will take his ideas forward within that party. One of which, of course, and one of which that he's been very open about has been, and reform to an extent, but Rupert Lowe especially, has been the question of deporting illegals and deporting foreign criminals. And a very interesting article was published in yesterday's Daily Telegraph about, nobody has ever looked into this before, but it's the numbers of immigrants who are actually to blame for crime statistics. And that's never really been properly done before, never looked at. But the Centre for Migration Control have looked into it, and the Daily Telegraph published the figures yesterday, and goodness me, they're really quite remarkable. Let me bring up the article. Now, as I bring up this article, last week, I tried to bring up an article and it didn't show. So you just saw me down in the corner and there was just this blank black space on the screen. Now, if that happens again, folks, I'm going to be looking at the comments. Please tell me if that happens. If, however, you can see the article fine, then please also tell me, because I don't want to do what I did last week and end up without bringing it up. Okay, that's the article brought up here. Can folk see that article? Please tell me if you can or if you can't. Okay, I'm going to go through it. Now, the article, foreigners convicted of nearly a quarter of sex crimes, in the Daily Telegraph. Good article is there. Fantastic. Foreigners are convicted of up to a quarter of sex crimes, according to the first data analysis of its kind. Now, this was published online 10th of March 25 in the Daily Telegraph, and in the print edition yesterday, the 11th of March. And it says 15% of sexual offences, including rape, were accounted for by foreign nationals between 2021 and 2023, and a further 8% recorded as unknown nationalities. In other words, they went British. And two nationalities, Afghans and Eritreans, were more than 20 times more likely to account for sexual offence convictions than British citizens. That's crazy. The highest number of sex offence convictions were accounted for by Romanians, followed by Poles, followed by Indians, followed by Pakistanis. And what the article has done here is it's looked at the rate based on per 10,000 of the population. And it has come up with these quite startling figures. Which nationalities commit the most violent, sexual and theft offences? Now, this is in England and Wales by nationality per 10,000. So this is a rate. And winning the violence stakes here are the Congolese. The Congolese, at 187 of their citizens out of 10,000. They're the most violent for conviction rate, followed by Somalis, followed by Afghanis, followed by Iraqis, followed by Gambians, with the UK, well, considerably further down the stakes. For sexual crimes, it's Afghanis, then Eritreans, then Namibians, then people from Chad. People from Chad. Whatever people from Chad might be doing here in Britain. And then Moldovans, for some reason, are coming a close second to the Chadians. And then for theft, it's the Algerians, followed by the Moroccans, followed by the Romanians, followed by the Congolese coming back in there, making a stand for their country in the theft stakes. Quite remarkable stuff here. And if we go to the original report from the Centre for Migration Control on their Substack, they say that actually there's 66 nationalities that are convicted at a higher rate than the actual British citizens. And also these British citizens, by the way, even though they're coming in at number 67 on the conviction rate per 10,000, those British citizens aren't all British citizens who look like me. You have to also remember. So they've even done this fantastic wee map here. We have a subscription to the Daily Telegraph, so we are able to bring it to you. But basically, you can click on France. People with the nationality of France were convicted of 917 crimes between 2021 and 2023, an overall crime rate of 65.5 per 10,000. Let's go to the Republic of Ireland here. People with the nationality of Ireland were convicted of 4,643 crimes. Remember, this is England and Wales. An overall crime rate of 150 per 10,000 residents. And where's our winners here down in, where's Chad? Is this Chad? Yeah, there we go. People with the nationality of Chad were convicted of 30 crimes. Okay, well, it's not, maybe that's not a whole lot of people then from Chad, but nevertheless, as far as the rate per 10,000, that's a 600 per 10,000 residents. What are we doing over here with the Cambodians? How are they getting on? Thailand, Cambodia, 11 crimes committed in England and Wales by Cambodians between 2021 and 2023. So this is endlessly fascinating. What about the people up here in Greenland? It doesn't get a mention. Iceland, 8 Icelanders. And how about these guys here? Ecuadorians, 121 crimes. So this is Japanese. They're 19 crimes. Australians, 151. New Zealanders, 81. Any country that anybody wants to find out about, and I'll just tell you here. Syrians, 393 crimes between 21 and 2023. Who are these? Russians, 324 crimes. Give us a country. Belarus and Estonia. Oh, now you're asking, where are they? They're up here, aren't they? No, I'm totally wrong. Moldovans, 665. Moldova, for such a little country, it's really basically doing a kind of Olympian effort here for crimes. Romanians, well, there you go. Romanians, 15,007. There we go. 15,701 crimes. Russians, 324. Uzbekistanians 30, Georgians, Ukrainians 412, Estonia found it, 128 crimes between 2021 and 2023. Latvia has been making an effort there at 2,546. And Lithuania as well is high, 5,521. Crying out loud. These guys are quite naughty. Poland, 13,333. Crying out loud. I mean, that's high. That country. Slovakia, 1,699. Okay, guys. Israel and Palestine. Israelis 38. Jordan 42. China, that's a good one. 431. That surprised me. I thought China would actually be a little bit higher, considering their role in the wacky-backy trade. Okay, well, let's further go down here. So which nationalities commit the most crime overall per 10,000 of the population? It's Albanians, followed by Moldovans, followed by Congo. Remember, this is a rate. It's not the actual number of... Oh, no, this is the conviction rate per 10,000 of their people. Albania, Moldova, Congo, Namibia, Somalia, Afghanistan, Morocco, Iraq, Algeria, Angola, Gambia, Eritrea, Vietnam, Tunisia, Libya. As we say, the Centre for Migration Control tells us there's actually 66 countries above the UK conviction rate. So there's definitely a pattern emerging there. And what I would suggest is that, given that we know the proclivities, that should be part of our immigration law considerations. In other words, how many people from those countries do you want if they do have a much higher rate of offending? And that should be used as a guide. If we lived in a country in which there was common sense applied, you would look at those rates, you would say, for crying out loud here, guys, I'm afraid we don't want those kind of numbers, and there's going to be consequences. But you see, our government doesn't care essentially about our safety. That's the incredibly upsetting and annoying thing. And it doesn't like looking at these figures, because these figures are politically incorrect. So congratulations to the Centre for Migration Control for researching all of this. But this is stuff that the civil service should be doing, and it should be part of our normal immigration considerations. Now, we have put that whole article up on our Facebook page, facebook.com/UK A Force for Good. We put that up this afternoon if you want to read it. And in the coming week, we'll roll out one or two of these graphics as well, linking, as always, to the source. Now, it's the bottom of the hour. I'm looking forward, as we all are, to welcoming our man, Damien Davies. Let's bring in Damien, folks. Please say a big hello to Damien Davies.
Hello.
Hello there to you, Damien. How are you this evening?
I'm not too bad, thank you. I hope you're well.
Yes, absolutely. Do you want to bring your your microphone just maybe a wee bit closer to your mouth there. Good.
Is that better?
Maybe just put it back up again.
Is that better?
Okay, just keep it at that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, Damien, you run Cheshire Cat Musings, which is a relatively new YouTube page.
Yes,
And
yes.
I want to just, by way of introduction to you, I want to read the about section of your page, which I think really describes what you're about pretty well. This is what it says on your YouTube page. If you've ever felt like your voice doesn't matter, like you're just another number to the politicians who take your vote for granted, you're not alone. I'm a working class Brit just like you. I believe in strong borders, controlled migration, and preserving the distinct British way of life. I stand for common sense policies and putting the interests of native Britons first. This channel is a place for people who've been pushed aside, workers, taxpayers, ordinary people who built this country, but are ignored by those who run it. If you think Britain should belong to the British, that our traditions and communities are worth protecting, and that working class voices deserve to be heard, then you're in the right place. No spin, no nonsense, just straight talking political musings from someone who gets it. Well done. I think that's a very good way of describing what you're about. Now, when did we first meet, Damien? Can you remember?
I think it was back in 2014 on the back or before the upcoming referendum up in Scotland on whether you guys should stay in the UK or leave the United Kingdom. And I just couldn't stay silent. I needed to come up and say hello and put my voice out there, so to speak. I've done a bit of travelling over the UK, and it started because of your separatist movement in Scotland. I wanted to see if there was anything behind the rhetoric, if there was any difference between people from Scotland, up in the Highlands, in your cities on the Central Belt, and other places down in Cornwall, in the Welsh valleys, around the Welsh coastline. And I wanted to actually assess to see if there is there any actually distinctive differences between us. And to be fair, yeah, there may be one or two little things, but primarily we're all one and the same, and I've always thought that, and I thought that before, and I think that now. There's not that if you look behind the rhetoric, there's not much substantive difference, and I don't say that as a negative. That's people can say that multiculturalism has failed. Well, the United Kingdom proves otherwise because multiculturalism can work, because Britain, the UK, has proved that it can and does work. It's the cultures need to be similar and they need to be aligned and they need to want the same thing. And that's what I wanted to put to the test. And before I thought, yeah, I can support the United Kingdom. I can get behind this. It's not just something. It's not something that's abstract. It's something I can quantify, and that's precisely why I did it.
I like that answer. That's a good answer. Doing basically your own research, as it were, to find out what's the commonality, and is it worth fighting for? And we're so glad that you came up, because myself and colleagues at the time, of course, were on the front line, and just learning the ropes really of activism back then. And so there's precious few opportunities for our sort of unionist people to engage in any kind of political action. We made as much as we could of the moment, but we were absolutely so glad that there was other people who were there who would come up. And were you living in the same place that you live now?
Yeah, down in Cheshire, Cheshire through and through. I don't think I have considered moving up to Scotland or other places in the UK, but it's finding the right time to do so. I'm still down in Cheshire, hence the handle on my channel. But now I'm a Northern English person, but more predominantly, I view myself as British first. There's been a lot of noise recently about people saying, well, can you define yourself as English or British, which is similar to question to what you guys get in Scotland, are you Scottish or British? And I actually had a sit-down chat with somebody I respect last week where they're on the opposite side to me. They see themselves as British, but they see themselves as English first, Whereas I'm on the flip side of that. I view myself as British first, but English second. And that's simply down to the fact of I hold a British passport, I have a British driving license, we all have the same armed forces, we have the same currency. So you can look historically of, yes, Scotland was separate, yes, England was separate. Well, historically, that's true. But that's all in the history books. That's not the here and now. We have to work with what we've got, which is Britain. I mean, when we see all these Channel migrants come over, yes, they're coming into the south of England, but they're coming into the British state. They're coming into the whole island. It's not just one particular place, and that's what you need to factor in.
Absolutely, 100%. And it's not like Great Britain can be defended if it was divided. If the actual island of Great Britain was divided into 3 different countries, we wouldn't be able to defend it properly. And it's hard enough to defend it right now when there's it shouldn't be hard, of course, but politicians choose not to.
Well, you'd think it'd be easy. We have got a built-in moat. It's not like we're landlocked like on the continent. You could make an argument on the continent they may have a bit more of a challenge, such as landlocked countries like Germany and what have you. If they didn't have Schengen, it wouldn't be as hard. But we don't really have that argument. We literally have a built-in moat, and it should be a lot easier. And it's just really pathetic when you see how weak-willed our politicians are down in Westminster.
Yes, it's absolutely terrible, of what's going on now. Your channel, youtube.com/at Cheshire Cat Musings. You set it up a while ago, but you've really only recently started to make videos on it. What made you go ahead and get into this in greater effort?
Here's the thing. I've been online politically active for about a decade since your referendum in 2014.
Yeah.
And I've got quite vocal on certain platforms such as X, which is a lot better now. Elon Musk has given us a bit more freedom to express ourselves freely. And on Facebook, which I think is going to go better under Zuckerberg with his capitulation to Trump in America. That should go down well over in Europe and in the UK as well. Yeah. However, I wanted to get a bit more articulate with what I say, and I wanted to try and put a bit more detail. I mean, one of my biggest pet hates online is when you get a lot of people hiding behind like a faceless profile, and they haven't even got the real name and the handle or anything like that. I'll stand by what I say. I'll put my face on camera. I don't necessarily care about that. I'm happy to put it out there. You don't have to agree with what I say. You should at least be able to respect my opinion. And even if you don't agree with it, you can say, well, okay, well, that's freedom of speech, I guess.
Absolutely. And I was just watching a few of your videos today, and some of your videos have done extremely well. I mean, tens of thousands of views listening to your considered opinion on stuff. I mean, that must please you.
Yes and no. There was here's the thing. You know, political views that I have privately because we've had conversation. I'm actually a pro-monarchist. I was a royalist under the late Queen. I'm still a pro-monarchist. So I think it's curious that the biggest rated video, or one of the biggest rated videos on my YouTube channel even, was a critique of the monarchy. And it's funny the way that goes sometimes, that because you can be quite knowledgeable about something, it can actually turn out to be a surprise sleeper hit, which is what happened. I am heavily critical of our current monarch. That doesn't mean we need to throw the baby out with the bathwater, for example. Genuine criticism of any institution is healthy. That's my view on the matter. So nothing within the bounds of obviously decency and incitement should be off the table in my view. So I will give my honest view on Charles, and I'll give my honest view on other institutions, and that's the way it should be.
Yes. I've noticed, unfortunately, just as a little detour there about the monarchy, that he has been getting a little bit of stick from people really who shouldn't be attacking him. I mean, if you're a British nationalist, for want of a better expression, the monarchy is part of the British nation, and without it, it's not going to be the Britain really that we know, because Britain is not a republic. It's very much a Christian monarchy. I mean, the flag behind me has got 3 Christian crosses on it, and you can't really. Our heritage is very much a monarchical one, and of course, the monarchy is not democratic. But to try to compare democracy with monarchy is like comparing apples and oranges. They're 2 different things. The question is, can the 2 of them work together? And in Britain, it has worked well together.
Well, we had a brief flirtation with the Republic. We had a brief flirtation for a few years, but the politicians like someone above them, basically, to keep them. It's sort of like a stopgap, if nothing else. So it does serve a function. And as I say, just because you're critical of the incumbent, that no incumbent is bigger than the institution. That's what you need to think of. I think a lot of the pushback that Charles has got is simply because the late Queen was the epitome of the constitutional monarch. So if anything diverges slightly from what she did, there's going to be pushback and there's going to be a critique. And I suppose that's because the late Queen was on the throne for so long. So
yes, absolutely. Now, one thing I want to just talk about now is the amazing coincidence that you happen to be a constituent of Mike Amesbury,
oh
who
yes,
is the Labour MP who unfortunately came a cropper, or at least made somebody else come a cropper, and as a consequence came a cropper himself. Now, we've got the video for anybody that hasn't actually seen this, and we'll just run this prior to talking about what's going to happen.
What? Oi! Oi! Stop it! Stop it! Oi! Excuse me! Oi! Oi! Stop it! Stop it! Oi! Excuse me!
Well, really, there's no excuse for that from anybody, let alone a member of Her Majesty's Parliament. And I don't know what was going on or what was said or whatever, but whatever was said, there's simply no excuse for that. And in fact, as a wee aside, twatting somebody like that across the jawline is very dangerous because you could knock them out. And that guy wasn't knocked out; he was just knocked down, so he was able to protect himself before he fell on the cold, hard ground. But if he had got knocked out by that punch, he would have fallen like a tree, and his head would have pranged off the concrete and could have killed him, easily killed him. So it's very dangerous getting involved in any kind of street fight like that, and very dangerous hitting somebody like that. And that was a sucker punch as well. So the whole thing was just absolutely tragic for everybody concerned. And he ended up getting 10 weeks. He served 2 days, I believe, and he's been given a suspended sentence for the next 2 years. And there's various stipulations that he has to attend alcohol counselling and anger management, which doesn't surprise me at all. And I do hope he benefits from it. But we all thought he might hang on as an MP, but he said he's going to stand down at the earliest possible convenience. So that's interesting for you. Have you had any run-ins with Mike Amesbury at all?
I have emailed him on several occasions regarding the policy of putting up all of these illegals. I'm going to not use the word irregular. Let's be real. They're illegal migrants and they're coming over from a safe country, which is France. They have no right to be here. They're here on our good humour, as far as I can see. And we've got several hotels in the area, and they're just besieged with all of these people that we're paying for. And I've written several letters to my MP about it, expressing my concern. They don't even bother to reply.
They don't even bother to reply.
I've
Yeah.
noticed this. Basically, there was a recent boundary change where basically my old seat has been merged with a seat on the other side of the River Mersey,
Right. But
And basically my old seat up until 2024, which was the first time that this current seat was contested, it was originally Weaver Vale, and now it's
right.
Runcorn and Helsby. And my old seat was Halton, which used to be Runcorn and Widnes, but that's changed to Widnes and Hale Wood. So it's basically boundary changes.
Okay.
I noticed when I used to write to my old MP, they only ever address the issues that they agree with or they've got a policy on. They don't address, say for example, you've got a 8 or a 10-point letter. They'll address the 3 or 4 points that they think they've got something to say about. But anything else, that's basically not in line with the party line. They just won't even address it.
Yeah.
So they can come across like they're addressing your concern, but they're not actually addressing the body of the letter. They're just cherry picking what they actually want to speak about.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, obviously, if he had a strong opinion and if he agreed with you on that, he would presumably have told you, if he had a personal opinion on the fact that there's so many such illegals coming
Well,
in.
not just that. We've got the issue that a lot of people have had over the country where there have been reports. I can't personally verify it. However, I have it on good authority that there's similar things where you've seen certain portions of this population hanging around local schools, making a nuisance of themselves. Police have having to be alerted. I don't know if you've had much of that up in Scotland, but it's rampant in my part of the UK, down in Cheshire. Now, as I say, that's not personal from my own experience. However, it is people that I trust, and I'm prepared to take their word for it.
Yeah, there's been reports of all of those things and considerably worse here in Scotland as well. The big cities, and Glasgow, for example, is not getting away from any of that, unfortunately. So it's Runcorn and Helsby. Now, looking at the previous, given that there is going to be a by-election, we don't know when as yet, but looking at the previous data,
I've got my suspicion that it's going to coincide with the local elections in England and Wales in May. And if they can time it right, they can downplay if Reform UK actually take the seat, which is looking likely.
That's a really good point. Now, let's look at the figures here from the 2024 election. Labour Amesbury was way ahead at 22,358 votes, and Reform was second, but I mean, 15,000 votes less? I mean, do you think that difference can be made up?
If you're looking at polling from this week and you look at recent polls, Reform UK are on about 30 to 31%, and the Labour share of the votes is down to about 33%. So it's within arm's reach. It is doable. I went to a local branch meeting in Runcorn and Helsby constituency of Reform UK activists and Jason Moorcroft, who he's not been told if he's going to be the candidate, yes or not, but there's a groundswell of support, meaning basically the north of England has always been Labour. There's never been anything but Labour. And I don't think it would ever swing Tory, but there's a groundswell of support. And if you look at what my MP actually said before we flattened our constituents, he actually said, "You will not threaten the MP again, will you? Yes, I am the MP. You will not do that again." There's a deep-seated entitlement to certain MPs and politicians where they think that you're not going to vote for anybody else so they can do what they want. And that's across the country. I think it's a similar sense of entitlement that the SNP have had in Scotland, especially since the referendum. They were sort of walking on eggshells up until the referendum, and then that sort of flipped on a dime when Labour lost all their MPs on the back of that referendum. The next election, that sort of changed, and there's like a deep-seated entitlement that certain political parties get, and it's sickening. No party is entitled to my vote. A little bit on my my political history. I voted Labour. I voted Tory. I voted Lib Dem. I'm the true definition of a floating voter. And I'm not party loyal. It's not like a football team. I will change to whatever party I think is going to deliver the change that I want.
Do you think that the current problems, then, let's talk about this with Reform UK, the internal falling out between Farage and Zia Youssef and Rupert Lowe, who has been suspended. Do you think the voters in Runcorn and Helsby are really going to be aware of that? Are they going to care about that? Is it going to make much of a difference to the vote?
Here's the thing: the grassroots, i.e., the people knocking on the doors, like I've not done the canvassing yet, but there's people that knock on the doors, and those people in that meeting. I don't know what the grassroots in my particular area think. There's a meeting on the last Wednesday of each month, so I'll know more on the 26th of March when I speak to local campaigners. From what I understand, people knocking on the door don't really know much about it, but the activists are well aware of it, and they're not very pleased. So there's two sides to that. The actual grassroots people are going to be putting the ground game in and the work for reform are not pleased. However, the actual awareness of the situation in the wider public is difficult to gauge at this point. I don't think it's going to have much of a cut through currently. I still think it's going to resolve itself in due course. I think it may take a few. It may take a while, but I do actually think it will resolve itself. But I'm forever the optimist.
There's a way to be, actually, and I tend to agree with you. And I do think, as you hinted at there, it will cause maybe a little bit of internal eruptions among the people who are particularly invested in those things. But we've always got to remember that people like you and I are very politically conscious. The people who it depends upon are the people who vote, and most people who vote, they've never heard of these personalities. Okay, they've heard of Farage. They haven't. Most of them have not heard of Rupert Lowe. And so for them, it's just an internal falling out of another party that they're not even really going to know about. So we tend to think sometimes that because it's very present for us, that somehow the rest of the world cares about it, when in fact the rest of the world doesn't even know about it. And if it knew about it, it wouldn't care about it. And that's very much like politics. And I've seen all the falling outs as well. I mean, I used to be a member of UKIP, and some of the personalities didn't want me to be a member of UKIP, because I was had lots of things going on in my head. I like to talk out a lot as well. So, but the things move on. And
the thing is, my worry with Reform UK is they're doing well in Wales. It looks like they're going to take the Welsh Parliament or the Welsh Assembly next year. I think that's pretty much in the bag.
Wow.
I think they're going to come third in Scotland. I think they're going to challenge the Tories, and I think they're going to be your third party. That's my honest view on the matter, and I say that as somewhat of an outsider because I'm in North England. That's just my view. I think that the only thing that potentially could lock Reform out of Wales completely is if they do what they've done with other parties on the continent, where you get the Uniparty, you get the Tories, you get Labour, and you get Plaid Cymru in Wales, and they actually form a coalition to lock Reform out. That's the only thing I'm thinking of that potentially could harm the Reform in Wales. But then I thought to myself, they can't really do that if they're going to be running on an anti-SNP ticket in Scotland. They can't side with the nationalists in Wales, but then not side with the nationalists in Scotland. It would be they can't have two different stances. They would need to have either a anti-separatist approach in Wales and Scotland, or they need to do both or neither.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Well, it will be interesting to see, because they will try. I think some of the parties will try to lock out Reform. Depends, of course, how many people Reform gets as well. But it really could be. It could be a surprising amount. It really could be in both Wales and in Scotland. And I personally, whatever may be the rights and wrongs of the Farage Lowe falling out, and whatever may be the rights and wrongs of the ideological issues that might possibly be at stake there, I don't see Reform being damaged in any serious way. I just see its star continuing to rise, whatever you may think of it. And I do see it doing well.
I do. I really do. And I hope we're both proven right. I am the ever the optimist. And the only thing my concern is that it cannot be a one-man band. If Farage wants the 2029 general election, not only does he need a team, He needs to be able to delegate, and he needs to be able to say, right, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this, and trust them to do it. And there needs to be a broad coalition for that to work. And think about it, Farage isn't getting any younger. Say, for example, he gets in 2029. Well, who's the next leader? Who's the one after that? Who's the one after that? That's what we need to think about, and they need to do a lot of work, and they've got
Absolutely.
a lot of time to do it. And I have confidence that we can get the house in order, but I'm not completely convinced yet. We'll have to wait and see.
It's going to be very interesting. Now, look, we're running short of time. Just before I go, I want to ask you, when your videos begin, there's a little design comes up. I just want to ask you, what is it? What's that?
Well, back in the day when it was ceremonial counties, they are still ceremonial counties. That's the flag of Cheshire.
Oh, right, that's the flag of Cheshire. Interesting.
Yeah. So it's like a multi-layered thing where I'm obviously in Cheshire, in England, and obviously in Britain in the UK, and it's sort of like a multi-layered aspect to my identity. One might say.
Okay, and I see you're even flying a wee flag for the Welsh there behind you.
Well, yeah, I actually picked this up in a market in North Wales called Tir Prince, which is down the road from Samhain, and I picked it up because I'm like, Wales isn't really represented on the Union Jack. And I know why that is. It's because at the point the Union Jack was designed, it was because Wales was essentially part of England. And the current Welsh flag, which is the dragon on the green background, that really only came in the late 1950s. So obviously the Union Jack predates the Welsh flag by 250 years. So I know the historical reason for that. And I don't think there's much of a call out to ingratiate the Welsh dragon onto the Union Jack. Well, I just picked it up. I just thought it looked nice, and I think it represents all four nations. So
absolutely, and it can be. I mean, those designs can be flown at events that it's appropriate to fly them at. So yeah, it's a nice wee little just design there. Now, so what I want to do though is encourage people who are on YouTube to please follow your site, which is youtube.com/ at Cheshire Cat Musings. And Damien, you're publishing fairly regularly. I mean, once a day, almost, certainly 2 or 3 times a week, and well worth a follow. And I do wish you the very best. And I'd love to be on your show as well, if I can ever wangle that from you, maybe someday in the future.
Well, I'm not doing live streams, but I'll invite you on to record a segment with me some point in the near future, and I'd also welcome coming back on to your channel again, maybe in the near future.
We must have you on. We must have you on, because I sense that this conversation could have gone on for an hour. And
well, you know me. You've had me. Well, you know me. You've had me in a pub before. You could talk to me all day about the country. So
absolutely, and you've got a lot to say, and you've got a lot of historical knowledge as well, which needs.
Although, just on a little bit of a side note, I'm glad you've got the poison dwarf Nicola Sturgeon stepping down in Scotland. That's really good news to me. And whenever I see him on the TV, I turn off. Thankfully, when I've seen that Labour lost all the seats, gained all the seats from the SNP, and they've done that bit of a close up on Nicola Sturgeon on ITV, it was absolutely so funny. It was so hilarious. I think I watched it on repeat. I just think it's brilliant. So
good. Well, folks, please do send in your comments, and thank Damien for his fantastic work there. We'll speak to you again. We'll get you on as soon as possible, actually, because I think we'll make a good team here. And so we'll say good night, and more power to your Cheshire English and British elbow.
Well, I very much appreciate your time. All the best, and take it easy.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Right, bye-bye. Fantastic. Damien Davies of Cheshire Cat Musings, whom you will find on youtube.com. And that was Damien's first time on the show, and we must get him back. Now, folks, before I say anything else, we always like to do a little show and tell regarding our merchandise that we want to be shifting out of our warehouse. So, folks, we do have this amazing Union Jack, a high quality Union Jack baseball cap here, which is hard and waterproof as well. So you'll get that at our shop, aforceforgood.uk/shop-1. We've even got these for every patriotic cook. These are not boxing gloves. Mike Amesbury doesn't need to have these, although he might like them if he's removing his roast beef from his cooker. Okay, fantastic oven gloves. We've also got between 2024 and 2028, it's the 110th anniversary of the tragedy that was World War I, which we are commemorating with our greetings card. Here is your home, here defend it, a remarkable poster which is an education in itself, because it breaks down every county and every regiment of every county. And in fact, there's the Cheshire Regiment right here next to the Royal Welsh Fusiliers. And we've also got, of course, a wee bestseller, a wee book for the Union, all of which you'll get at aforceforgood.uk/shop-1. And as we say, we're working on volume 2 of a big book for the Union, which you'll get at Amazon. Just search for One Big Country, a big book for the Union, volume 1. Search Amazon for that. And we're dedicating a lot of time. We didn't have time tonight to talk about our new paper, which we released on our website yesterday, which is about the benefit system that refugees get as a consequence of our membership of the UN Refugee Council. But we do a lot of research. We're putting it all into a book, volume 2. The best way to help us continue to do this work is either to donate or to buy our merchandise, and that keeps this show on the road, folks. Thank you. Thank you for watching. So that's our donation. That's well, it's actually union-supporters. You'll find it at, and that's our shop. So thank you to all our supporters for joining us this evening. Take care, and hope to see you all next Wednesday. It just remains for me to say, folks, God bless the United Kingdom and God save the King. See you next time.